Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville. All of us have silly ideas, little nonsensical notions that pop into our mind and then go away. Most people do the sensible thing and just let them die a natural death. Every now and then I like to grab hold of one of those silly ideas and chase it down, see where it goes, and God forbid even make a video about it. That's what I'm going to do today. Today's silly idea is, could in a few years women's watches end up being bigger than men's watches? Stick with me and I'll talk you through my logic. Okay, first things first, an assumption or a ground rule, if you like. For me, watch sizing is purely about fashion. There's nothing like physiological or anthropomorphic about a watch's size, like a bracelet or earrings or a necklace. Its size is determined by fashion. If the fashion is smaller watches, watches will be smaller. If the fashion is bigger watches, watches will be bigger. So the first thing to get through is the size of a woman's wrist versus a man's wrist is irrelevant to the size of watch that someone might wear. Women, there are lots of products for women where there is a corresponding product for men where the woman's product is much bigger. Handbags, purses, earrings, necklaces, rings. Routinely, the women's product in all of those cases is much bigger, has a lot more presence, has a lot more statement than the men's equivalent. And my theory is that women's watches are actually going that way. And this is where I'm coming from. If you get on any kind of watch enthusiast website, everyone wants smaller watches. You know, what used to be a 44, they want a 42. What was a 42, they want a 40. People are now saying, I want 38 millimeter divers. I want 36 millimeter explorers. Men want their watches to shrink. There is no reason for it other than fashion. I think predominantly because the general population has gone for larger watches. I think the watch enthusiast, the male watch enthusiast community is trying to distance themselves from the unwashed unenthusiast by trying to make smaller watches fashionable, to mark themselves out as part of the cognoscenti, you know, like I know more than you because my watch is smaller. And I think that's really driving the fashion for men's watches to shrink. But what you see for women is the reverse. You see more and more women saying, I'm not going to be held back by ideas of femininity, by ideas of what I can hold, what I can do, what I can pull off. I want to go bigger. So you see more and more female watch enthusiasts saying, I want my watches to get bigger. I want 40 millimeters. I want 42 millimeters. Give me a short lug to lug, but give me a big watch. Now, some of you are going to be saying, Pete, you know, I'm focusing on a really small group. I'm focusing on a very small number of women who are very vocal on social media and don't represent the vast majority of, you know, female watch buyers. And I kind of see where you're coming from. I know that like 28, 32, 34 millimeter watches still sell big to women who have been buying watches all along. But this is where I jump off and say, what about all those women coming into watches now through things like smartwatches? See, if you're a woman just who's never really worn a watch, but now coming into it through the latest version of Apple Watch, until recently you could get a 38, that was the smallest Apple Watch. The new version, the smallest Apple Watch you can get is a 40. The smallest Garmin you can buy is a 40. Predominantly they're 42 and bigger. And that's true of most of the smartwatches. And that's where I'm thinking that we could get to. That as I said, women are pushing back more and more that they're expected to have small, petite things. They're being trained through the Apple Watch, through Garmin's and other versions, Sunto's and all those other smartwatches, that they can and should be wearing 40, 42 millimeter watches. Then could we see in a few years the watches that are being designed for men, like a man's earring or a man's wallet, will be small, discreet, really kind of compact, and women's watches become larger, become bigger, like a woman's handbag or like a woman's purse? I don't know. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's probable enough that it's not a totally ridiculous thought. And it's something I'm kind of curious to see. I keep watching for releases of watches which are obviously designed for women, and seeing that they're getting bigger and bigger. They were 34s, they're now 35s, they were 36s. And watching watches designed obviously for men getting smaller, and thinking, could there be a crossover point in the next year or two? Could we see Rolex introducing a watch designed for men at around about 35 millimeters, and someone else producing a watch designed for women at 37, 38 millimeters? I'm not above stealing ideas from other YouTubers, and this kind of editor's insert is a common tool that people use. So I'm going to start using them, and today is the day. Okay, now at this point, some of you are saying, Pete, what are you talking about? All watches are unisex. Okay, yes, that's true, and actually, no, it's not true. Maybe one day it will be, but it's not right now. Right now, whether you like it or not, society, then the products made for us, they are coded masculine and feminine. Things which are masculine have some obvious cues, things which are feminine have other obvious cues. I'm not going to go into what they are now, because if you're human, you'll know what they are. And that's just the reality. Maybe one day it won't be, but today it is. Now, if you don't like the idea of me saying that watches designed for men and watches designed for women, simply insert watches designed with obvious masculine cues versus watches designed with obvious feminine cues, and we can all just build a bridge and get over any issues you might be having right now. And what if those trajectories keep going? It could be really interesting. Anyway, that's a silly thought. It's probably not going to happen, but I thought it was kind of worth thinking about. I've been Pete McGonville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. Leave your thoughts below. Tell me how ridiculous my idea is. I'll talk to you later. Bye.